The world is filled with masks. People wear them to fit into social circles, to advance in their careers, and to maintain an image of themselves that is carefully crafted for public consumption. But there are two things that reveal a person's true character, no matter how well they try to hide behind their words or their carefully curated actions. You don't need years of knowing someone to understand who they really are. You just need to observe these two things and they will tell you everything. A person's true character is not revealed when they are interacting with their superiors or those who can offer them something in return. It is revealed in the way they treat those who are beneath them, those who have no power, no influence, and no ability to elevate their status. The way someone speaks to a waiter, a janitor, or a struggling individual is a direct reflection of who they truly are when there is nothing to gain. This is where entitlement, arrogance, or genuine kindness comes to the surface, free from the restraints of social expectation. When an individual believes themselves to be superior, their behavior shifts in subtle but telling ways. Do they show patience when speaking to someone who fumbles their words? Do they listen attentively to those they deem unimportant, or do they dismiss them without thought? The inability to offer basic respect to those in weaker positions is a clear sign of underlying insecurity, a need to exert dominance over others as a way to compensate for inner deficiencies. Power, whether in the form of wealth, status, or authority, is a magnifying glass. It does not create a person's character, it simply amplifies what was already there. A person who is kind at heart will remain kind when they have influence, and a person who is cruel will become even more so. The moment an individual gains power, watch how they speak to their subordinates. If they become condescending, dismissive, or harsh, it was never the power that corrupted them. It only revealed what was always within them. There is a natural human tendency to seek approval from those we admire or view as important. But real character is demonstrated in how a person behaves when there is no audience, no reward, and no recognition. A person who is kind in public but harsh and unkind in private is not truly kind. They are performing. Genuine goodness is consistent, regardless of who is watching. Those who lack character will often justify their mistreatment of others by rationalizing that people in lower positions deserve to be spoken down to, as if status determines worth. But respect is not something that should be given only to those in positions of influence. It is something every person is entitled to, regardless of their role in society. A strong person understands this and treats others with dignity, while a weak person seeks to diminish others to elevate themselves. You can learn more about a person's integrity by watching how they treat those with nothing to offer them than by listening to 1,000 words they speak. Words are easy to manipulate, actions are not. The small moments, holding the door open, offering a kind word, making eye contact when speaking to someone of lower status. These are the signals of true character. A person who treats the least among them with respect is someone whose integrity runs deep. In contrast, a person who belittles those beneath them will eventually turn on those around them when it is convenient. If someone can mistreat a server today, they will mistreat a friend tomorrow when they no longer see them as useful. If they can be kind to the powerful and cruel to the powerless, their kindness is not real, it is manipulation, a tool for personal gain rather than a reflection of inner virtue. Arrogance often disguises itself as confidence, but the difference is clear when you observe someone's interactions with the weak. True confidence does not require the humiliation of others to feel secure. A truly strong individual does not need to step on others to elevate themselves. In fact, the strongest people lift others up rather than tear them down, knowing that real leadership is demonstrated through service, not dominance. Watch carefully in everyday situations. Observe how a person speaks to those who clean up after them, those who provide them with a service, or those who work in positions that society often overlooks. Do they offer a simple thank you? Do they acknowledge the person's presence? Or do they look through them as if they do not exist? These seemingly small moments are more revealing than grand gestures of generosity performed for attention. Many people are kind when it benefits them. They will be polite to their boss, show warmth to someone they are trying to impress, and be generous when there is a reward. But this is not kindness. It is a transaction, an exchange of favors disguised as virtue. True kindness is measured by how one treats those who can do nothing for them. A person who is only kind when it is advantageous is not kind at all. It is also important to recognize that this principle applies in personal relationships. How does a person treat a friend when that friend is struggling? Do they offer patience and understanding, or do they distance themselves because there is no longer an advantage to maintaining the relationship? The way someone responds when another person is at their lowest tells you everything you need to know about their character. People reveal themselves in the smallest, most seemingly insignificant moments. There is no need to test their honesty with complicated scenarios or force them into difficult choices. Simply observe how they interact with those they believe to be beneath them, and you will see exactly who they are. Hardship is the ultimate test of character because it strips away all pretense and reveals what truly lies beneath the surface. When life is easy, it is simple to maintain a composed demeanor, to appear strong, wise, and even kind. But the moment adversity strikes, when comfort disappears and challenges become unavoidable, a person's true nature emerges without effort or disguise. Some crumble under the pressure, revealing weakness and lack of discipline, while others stand firm, proving their resilience and depth. One of the most telling signs of a person's character during hardship is how they handle frustration and disappointment. Do they lash out at those around them, blaming others for their misfortune? Do they fall into self-pity, looking for sympathy and excuses? Or do they take responsibility, assess the situation, and work toward a solution? A person who immediately looks for someone else to blame is revealing their unwillingness to confront their own shortcomings, while a person who remains calm and seeks solutions demonstrates a rare level of self-mastery. Hardship exposes whether a person is driven by principle or by convenience. When things are going well, it is easy to uphold values like honesty, loyalty, and patience. But when faced with loss, failure, or uncertainty, do they hold on to these values, or do they abandon them the moment they become inconvenient? A person who lies, betrays, or deceives under pressure was never truly committed to those virtues in the first place. They only followed them when it was easy. A person's ability to endure suffering without becoming bitter is one of the clearest indicators of their strength. Some allow pain to harden them, to turn them resentful and cynical, believing that the world is unjust and that kindness is weakness. Others take hardship as an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to refine themselves into someone stronger and wiser. This difference is what separates those who become victims of their circumstances from those who rise above them. During times of struggle, observe how a person treats others, especially those who cannot improve their situation. Do they remain kind and respectful, or do they allow their stress and anger to make them harsh and inconsiderate? Many believe they have the right to be cruel when they are suffering, as if their pain justifies mistreatment of others. But true character is shown in the ability to remain compassionate even when life is unfair and exhausting. Hardship reveals whether a person is truly patient or whether their patience was merely a mask for their comfort. It is easy to be patient when nothing is going wrong, but the moment things fall apart, does their patience remain? Can they endure difficulty without rushing to rash decisions, without panicking or giving in to destructive impulses? Those who can think clearly and remain steady in the face of adversity are the ones who possess true inner strength. One of the most dangerous responses to hardship is seeking distraction rather than resolution. Some turn to destructive habits, excessive drinking, reckless behavior, or constant escapism, rather than confronting their problems directly. This avoidance does not eliminate hardship, it only postpones it while creating even greater issues in the process. Those who face their problems head-on, refusing to numb themselves to reality, prove that they have the discipline and courage necessary to overcome them. Hardship exposes whether a person values growth over comfort. When confronted with failure or difficulty, do they see it as an opportunity to become better, or do they see it as a personal attack? Some allow hardship to define them as victims, constantly dwelling on how unfair life is. Others accept hardship as an unavoidable aspect of existence, using it as fuel to sharpen their minds, strengthen their resolve, and deepen their understanding of themselves and the world. Adversity does not create new weaknesses, it simply magnifies the ones that were already there. A person who collapses under pressure was already weak, but their weakness was hidden beneath layers of comfort and routine. Likewise, a person who remains strong and collected in difficult times was already disciplined, already resilient. The difference is simply that hardship forces these traits to become visible in ways that comfort never could. A person's ability to maintain faith, whether in themselves, in others, or in something greater, is one of the most critical aspects of enduring hardship, Many abandon their beliefs the moment they are tested, proving that those beliefs were never deeply rooted. Others hold on to them even when circumstances seem to contradict their faith, showing a level of conviction that cannot be easily shaken. The ability to maintain hope and perspective in dark times is a mark of a truly grounded individual. The way someone speaks about their hardship is just as revealing as how they endure it. Do they constantly complain, seeking sympathy and validation? Or do they speak about their struggles with a sense of ownership, using them as lessons rather than excuses? A person who turns every difficulty into a public display of suffering is often more interested in attention than in growth, while a person who quietly endures and learns is the one who will emerge stronger. When you observe a person in hardship, you are seeing them in their most authentic state. Their behavior in these moments is not an act. It is not carefully curated to impress or manipulate. It is raw, unfiltered, and completely honest. How they react, how they treat others, and how they carry themselves through difficulty will tell you everything you need to know about their true character. A person's promises reveal more about their character than their words ever could. When someone makes a commitment, they are setting an expectation, creating a bond of trust, and defining their reliability. It is easy to speak grandly about intentions, to make vows in moments of excitement, or to offer reassurances when nothing is on the line. But the real test of integrity comes when keeping that promise requires effort, sacrifice, or inconvenience. Promises, when broken, expose a deep inconsistency in a person's values. It is not about forgetting or making honest mistakes. Those happen to everyone. The true issue arises when someone repeatedly fails to uphold their word, demonstrating that they either do not take commitments seriously or lack the discipline to follow through. When a person consistently makes promises they cannot keep, they are not just unreliable, they are actively eroding the trust others place in them. Some people make promises for the sake of appearances, to gain favor or to manipulate a situation in their favor. They may vow loyalty, offer their help, or assure others of their dependability, yet when the moment arrives to prove it, they are nowhere to be found. These individuals often believe that words alone are enough to maintain relationships, but what they fail to understand is that every broken promise chips away at their credibility, leaving them with nothing but empty words. The weight of a promise is not measured in how loudly it is declared, but in how quietly it is kept. The most trustworthy people do not feel the need to make grand statements about their reliability. They simply follow through. They do not overpromise or exaggerate their abilities. They carefully consider their commitments, knowing that each one is a reflection of their character. When they say they will do something, they do it, not because it is easy, but because their word is a contract with themselves. Observe how a person treats their small promises, because these are the foundation of larger commitments. If someone cannot keep their word on minor matters, arriving on time, completing simple tasks, or following through on casual assurances, it is unlikely they will honor greater obligations. Small promises may seem insignificant, but they reveal a pattern of thought and behavior that extends into every area of life. A person who is careless with minor commitments will be equally careless with major ones. There are those who break promises and offer endless excuses. They blame circumstances, bad timing, or even the people they let down. They rewrite history, insisting that their commitment was misunderstood or that their failure was unavoidable. But responsibility does not come with conditions. A person who values their integrity does not search for excuses. They acknowledge their failure, make amends, and learn from their mistakes. The difference between someone who is trustworthy and someone who is not is the willingness to own their actions. Keeping a promise is often inconvenient. It requires time, effort, and, in many cases, personal sacrifice. But this is precisely why it is a measure of character. When a person honors their commitments despite difficulty, they prove that their word is more valuable to them than temporary comfort. These are the individuals who can be relied upon in moments of crisis, who stand by their friends, their families, and their principles, even when it costs them something. Some people make promises with good intentions, but lack the discipline to follow through. They truly believe they will keep their word, but they fail to plan, to prioritize, or to take their own limitations into account. Their failure is not one of malice, but of weakness. And while this may seem less severe, the impact is the same. A promise made and broken, regardless of intention, creates disappointment and damages trust. A person who truly values their integrity learns to commit only to what they can realistically accomplish. Promises are not just about reliability, they are about respect. When someone keeps their word, they are showing respect for the person they made the promise to, for the relationship they share, and for themselves. Breaking promises, especially without remorse, signals a lack of regard for others' expectations and feelings. It reveals selfishness, a disregard for accountability, and a failure to understand that trust, once lost, is difficult to regain. A person's ability to keep their promises is not dependent on external circumstances, but on internal values. Life will always present obstacles, unforeseen challenges, and temptations to take the easier path. But the person who understands the weight of their word does not allow these things to become excuses. They adapt, they adjust, and they do everything in their power to uphold their commitments, knowing that their actions define them far more than their words ever could. If you want to understand someone's true nature, watch how they handle their promises when no one is watching. Do they follow through even when there is no recognition, no reward, and no pressure? Or do they abandon their commitments the moment they believe they can get away with it? A person who only keeps their promises when they are being observed is not truly dependable. They are simply performing reliability rather than embodying it. In the end, trust is built not through grand gestures, but through consistency. A person who keeps their promises, no matter how small, earns the trust of those around them, while a person who constantly fails to follow through finds themselves isolated, doubted, and questioned at every turn. Integrity is not a declaration, it is a habit, formed in the small, everyday choices a person makes. If you want to understand someone's true character, pay close attention to whether their promises are words or commitments written in action. The ability to admit when one is wrong is a hallmark of emotional maturity and intellectual honesty. It requires a level of self-awareness and humility that not everyone possesses, as it often involves confronting one's own ego and acknowledging fallibility. Many people struggle with this because admitting fault can feel like a blow to their self-esteem or reputation. However, those who can openly acknowledge their mistakes demonstrate a strength of character that commands respect. Fear of judgment or consequences often prevents individuals from admitting they are wrong. They may worry that doing so will make them appear weak or incompetent, especially in professional or competitive environments. This fear can lead to defensiveness, denial, or even doubling down on incorrect positions. Yet the refusal to admit error often causes more harm than the mistake itself, eroding trust and credibility over time. In relationships, the inability to admit wrongdoing can create resentment and distance. When one partner consistently avoids accountability, it undermines the foundation of mutual respect and open communication. Conversely, owning up to mistakes fosters deeper connection and trust, showing a willingness to prioritize the relationship over pride. This dynamic applies not only to romantic partnerships, but also to friendships, family bonds, and professional collaborations. In leadership, admitting mistakes is a critical skill that builds trust and inspires loyalty. Leaders who deflect blame or refuse to acknowledge errors create cultures of fear and dishonesty. On the other hand, those who model accountability encourage transparency and growth within their teams. A leader's willingness to say, "I was wrong," sets a powerful example, demonstrating that imperfection is part of the human experience. The societal stigma around being wrong exacerbates the difficulty of admitting fault. From a young age, many are taught that mistakes are failures rather than opportunities for learning. This mindset discourages vulnerability and reinforces the idea that perfection is the only acceptable standard. Shifting this perspective requires normalizing error as a natural part of growth and innovation. Cognitive biases also play a significant role in the reluctance to admit wrongdoing. Confirmation bias, for instance, leads people to seek information that supports their existing beliefs while ignoring contradictory evidence. The sunk cost fallacy can make individuals persist in flawed decisions simply because they've already invested time or resources. Recognizing these biases is the first step toward overcoming them and cultivating a more objective, open-minded approach. Apologizing sincerely when wrong is an art that many struggle to master. A half-hearted or defensive apology often does more harm than good, as it fails to acknowledge the impact of the mistake. A genuine apology, on the other hand, involves taking full responsibility, expressing remorse, and making amends. It requires vulnerability, but ultimately strengthens relationships and personal integrity. In professional settings, the pressure to appear infallible can be overwhelming, particularly in high-stakes industries. However, the most respected professionals are those who can admit errors, learn from them, and adapt. Transparency about mistakes can prevent larger issues down the line and foster a culture of continuous improvement. Colleagues and clients alike appreciate honesty far more than the illusion of perfection. The scientific community offers a compelling example of how admitting error drives progress. Scientists routinely revise theories in light of new evidence, embracing the iterative nature of discovery. This willingness to be proven wrong is what advances knowledge and innovation. In contrast, clinging to outdated or debunked ideas stifles growth and undermines credibility. On a personal level, the habit of admitting mistakes leads to greater self-improvement and emotional resilience. Each time someone acknowledges an error, they reinforce their ability to learn and adapt. This mindset reduces the fear of failure, allowing for more creative risk-taking and personal growth. Over time, it becomes easier to separate one's self-worth from individual mistakes. Social media and public discourse have made admitting wrongdoing even more challenging, as missteps are often amplified and scrutinized. The fear of cancellation or public shaming can make people dig in their heels rather than admit fault. Yet those who handle public mistakes with grace and accountability often earn back respect more quickly than those who evade responsibility.